As you know, we've been covering with great interest a story out of Northern Virginia where high schools withheld meritorious accommodations for the students who had been working the hardest and achieving the best, getting the best grades. And the reason for that, we're told, is that they didn't want the other students to feel bad. You know, there's a few people that came to mind when I heard that deterioration of what America really stands for. When I heard that undermining of basic America values and the idea that hard work and achievement should in fact be rewarded, I thought of Vivek Ramaswamy. He, of course, is the author of Nation of Victims, and he's the co-founder and chairman of Strive Asset Management. Vivek, I've heard you talk about this so eloquently, and the fact that this story broke right around Martin Luther King Day, I think really brings it home. Thank you for joining us to talk about it.
Thank you, Larry. It's deeply personal to me, I will tell you. As a first-generation American, the kid of parents who came to this country with almost no money, merit, including scholastic achievement in our schools, that was the way kids like me are supposed to get ahead. And yes, I had a successful business career thereafter. But I'll tell you this, Larry, if I had been born 20 years earlier, my story might not have been possible. But when I see what's happening in places like Virginia today, I think about the fact that if I had been born 20 years later, my story would have been darn near impossible as well. And I just think merit and the pursuit of merit is part of what it means to be American. And this assault on merit in our schools is an assault on the American soul. And I think that's why it's so important that we fix it.
You know, we saw this creep happen with, we make a joke of it now, the participation trophy generation, right? Where everybody who played soccer got a trophy and everybody's a winner, even if, well, you're not very good and your team lost. It's one thing when it's about soccer, where a bunch of kids are chasing a ball around in a field. But here we're talking about achieving at the highest level academically so that you can go on and become a leader, a corporate leader, a leader of our communities, or maybe even the leader of our nation. I mean, this is what we're supposed to be encouraging our kids to strive for, Vivek.
Absolutely. And it's part of the reason I even named my new company Strive. I think it's all about striving for excellence. That's what we've forgotten. In a certain sense, our own culture of excellence in this country, Larry, it has leapt oceans now to lift up places on the other side of the world like China.
Yeah.
And the irony is that their culture of Maoist victimhood has now leapt oceans back in the other direction to drag us down. And I personally think that when many Americans rallied behind the cry to make America great again, myself included, we didn't hunger for any single man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence, and that's what we have lost, but it's also at the heart of American identity itself. And you know what? You could debate the soccer field example, the participation trophies. Even then, I had a problem with it, but that's supposedly at least about dragging up the people who are at the bottom. What we're doing now is one step worse.
Yeah.
It's pulling down the kids on top, and I think that's actually goes from being laughable and a joke to being something that's toxic and dangerous.
What do you say directly to those school administrators, the professional educators, and they all have advanced degrees, if you notice, who get themselves to a place where they believe that it's better not to reward and recognize those who have achieved, lest they hurt the feelings of those who did not reach that achievement? It makes no sense, and it's so contrary. As a parent, by the way, I mean, I have 4 kids. They didn't all achieve equally, but you don't not recognize your kids who have achieved because you might hurt the feelings of another child. That's not how human relations work, Vivek. What do you say to them who in their lofty, educated positions think that you're the problem?
So my number one piece of advice to the managerial class in education is that it's not about you. It is about the kids. That is why our schools exist. And there should be plural paths to excellence. Larry, my way should not be the only way. My path should not be the only path. There should be many ways to excel in this country, whether it's academically, whether it's on the sports field, whether it's through vocational training, being good at building things with your hands. All of those should be paths to success in our country. And admittedly, I think that's something that we need to get better about as policymakers and as culture writ large. But the right answer to that is to fix that problem, not to adopt this anti-achievement culture in the classroom. And I think that's something that disrespects not only the kids who are high achieving on their test scores, but it even disrespects the kids who they are supposedly helping, because it teaches them that's the only way for them to get ahead is by dragging somebody else down. Instead, we need to figure out how to achieve excellence and allow every individual to achieve excellence in their own unique way. And I think that is the challenge for our country going forward. If we do it, we have a national revival. And I'm optimistic about that. If we don't, this is the decline of yet another great empire in human history. That's what's at stake.
Vivek, I was raised in a post-Martin Luther King America, and I thought the lesson of Martin Luther King was, in fact, to judge people not by the color of their skin, by the content of their character. I try not to look at the world through the lens of race. However, in this story, it is hard to overlook the fact that most of the children who have been denied their meritorious recognition are of Asian descent or from the subcontinent, and those administrators who are making this decision are, frankly, Northeast white liberals.
So, as I said, this is deeply personal to me. And you're right, my parents did arrive in a country that believed that Martin Luther King was right, that you get ahead not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your contributions and your achievements and your character, that you get ahead through hard work rather than through grievance, equal opportunity, not equal results. This stuff was trite in the 1990s when I was growing up in Ohio. Today, what was once trite is now controversial. But I do think it's discriminatory in a lot of directions. And I just don't say that not only just as a Indian American or an Asian American myself. I think it is discriminatory against the Black Americans and Hispanic Americans who are supposedly the ones that these policies are supposed to help, because it says that you can't achieve on your own merit without these social top-down policies. So the irony is, even though what begins as a form of anti-white or anti-Asian racism, what it does is it spawns this new wave of anti-Black racism that otherwise would not have existed in our culture were it not for these affirmative action policies in the workforce and in college admissions, all the way down to these anti-meritocratic policies in our public schools.
And this is all sold to the American people, and sold to, I think, mostly middle-class suburban parents who their heart's in the right place. It's sold to them under the guise of equity. Equity, right? It's equity, not equality, equity. There was a time when, we would think rising tide lifts all boats. The equity people look at that and they say, well, rising tide lifts all boats isn't good enough because some boats are already bigger than others, so we got to sink those boats to bring them down to the level. It's a strained analogy, but this is the problem with equity think, isn't it?
It is, and I think this is uncomfortable for a lot of people to understand. But equity and excellence are fundamentally incompatible. Okay, if you're going to be unapologetically committed to excellence, that means that certain people are going to be better at certain things and achieve more things than others, and that is okay, as long as we have multiple ways to succeed in a society. The people who succeed on the basketball court are not the same people who succeed on the football field, who are not the same people who succeed in math and science classrooms, who are not the same people that succeed in carpentry classes. That's a good thing. That's part of what true pluralism in America is all about. And I will be the first to acknowledge that we have work to do to allow people to earn respect, honor, and dignity in our society, even if they don't go through a 4-year college education or have a bunch of degrees after their name. I told you my path cannot be the only path. We have to do that hard work in our country. But the way we do it is by opening up those other paths, not by this anti-meritocratic attack on the people who succeed in the classroom, who succeed in free market capitalism. The thing we need to do is make sure that there are plural paths to success rather than attacking success itself.
In our final minute here, Vivek, if this didn't get national attention because it happened in a DC suburb, this would still be going on. It is still going on in school systems all across the country. What should be done? Is it as simple as just everyday Americans getting fed up and saying, that's it, I'm running for school board, we're going to change things?
That's true in the schools, but what we really have is a national cancer. And as much as I applaud Governor Youngkin and Governor DeSantis for taking this on at the state level, that's all they're equipped to do as governors. These are not state issues. This is a national cultural issue. Okay, affirmative action is a cancer on the American soul. And you know what? I think it actually starts with the federal government. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but there was a Johnson-era executive order that requires over 20% of the U.S. workforce, any company that does business with the U.S. government, to adopt race-based hiring quotas in the name of equity. Many Republican presidents could have rescinded that. They didn't. The last 3 Republican presidents did not, for fear of political backlash. So I think the right answer is to graduate from this culture of fear, to say in public the things that we say in private, to do so respectfully so we can actually have open debate about these issues rather than to fester with grievance of our own. I think that's actually the way forward. And it's not just about public schools. It's not just about universities. It's about every sphere of our lives where we need to revive this pursuit of excellence.
Thank you, Vivek. More to come on O'Connor tonight.